welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, today we are discussing what has been hailed as a landmark Supreme Court judgment on the Pegasus case. The Supreme Court has ruled very interestingly that national security cannot be cited as a reason to trample on our privacy and our fundamental privacy rights, which of course, as you know, the judgment of Kunnaswamy has in 2017 declared it as a fundamental right. How much of an impact this has, not just on the case, the Pegasus case, where, you know, there's been an accusation that an Israeli spyware was used by the government to spy on private citizens and some government MPs and businessmen. As you know, the software was sold by the NSO and a company which only sells government to government. So the implication is, was the central government actually, did the central government purchase the software, or is some other government spying on us? You know, all these questions need to be answered. The central government had been trying to hedge the answers in the court, saying that it's a matter of national security. But now the court has ruled that there are other things equally, or if not more important than national security. Hence this landmark judgment, and hence today's conversation. Joining me is, of course, Sanjay Hegde. He is a senior advocate at the Supreme Court. Dilip Cherian, political commentator and image guru. And Dr. Professor Jayajit Bhattacharya. He is a professor at the Center for Digital Economy Policy Research. And he's authored 6 books on e-governance. So, Jayajit, the implications of the judgment, you know, in terms of right to privacy, you know, because we've seen that it's not just Pegasus software, we've seen even WhatsApp chats are being violated in terms of right to privacy. So, what are the larger implications you see of the Supreme Court judgment?
I think the key peg to the judgment and the learning of this judgment is the fact that the government has been putting up security as a major concern when these situations were coming up. Security and privacy are 2 different sides of the coin, in the sense the more you increase security, the more privacy violation you have, and therefore less privacy you have, and the other way around. When you increase privacy, there is a chance that you reduce security because there are unwanted elements who needs to be surveilled and they cannot be surveilled. What the Supreme Court has essentially said is that the government cannot be taking up security as an excuse to sidestep from the main issue of whether surveillance happened or not. Now, under the extant laws, actually the Supreme Court and the judiciary is supposed to step away from issues which involve national security. However, in this case, the precedence that's being set up is that the court very clearly laying out that security cannot be taken as an excuse all the time. And therefore, there needs to be an independent investigation into what really happened. Incidentally, the government had also put in its affidavit that, look, we are saying that security is an issue, but we are not shying away. We are willing to put in all the details, but to a small committee, and we will set up the committee. What the court has come back and saying is that, good, we take up the offer, but we will set up the committee for you, because it's very difficult to set up an independent committee. Even the courts themselves said that it was a challenge to find 3 people who are independent, unbiased, and who are willing to take up the job. In fact, many of the people that the Supreme Court reached out to actually declined, and they said they cannot take up the role of being part of this committee. So these were some of the key learnings and challenges, and essentially the key point being that national security cannot always be used as an excuse to sidestep the core issue of the fact that citizens' right to privacy and their independence and the independence of the fourth estate needs to be maintained.
Sanjay, your takeaway on the larger impact of the judgment and also a bit of the political repercussions of it.
Well, political repercussions I can't really comment on. I'm not a politician, though though I'm a keen watcher of it. It was politically hot in the beginning, but then people went off essentially saying that the issue was not getting traction. Now this judgment has brought it back center stage, and what the committee may or may not do it might give more political impetus. Now, supposing the committee were to come back and say, look, Pegasus was in fact used, it was used on these individuals, these individuals do not, to our mind, appear to have anything to do with national security. Under the garb of national security, political purposes were being addressed, and there was warrantless, unwarranted snooping going on, which is totally unconstitutional. Then the government would have a lot to answer. On the other hand, we know that classic definition of a committee which says that It's a set of people who individually can do nothing, but collectively can decide that nothing can be done. So if the committee comes back with with a report saying that we tried our best, the government did not cooperate, after it did not cooperate, we did take a technical view, we checked out the phones of some people on the list, but the phones now data is so old that we cannot for sure say whether it was surveilled, whether it was not surveilled. That kind of report, the court will have no material to go further on it. So a lot depends on what the committee comes back with.
I found, Dilip, also very interesting that a lot of people were not keen to be part of the committee. You know, there is also political undertone to that statement. And how do you see the political ramifications of this?
While Sanjay has given us, the legal implications of the impossibility of committees to come to any real conclusions of high quality, my sense is that we need to look at it from 2 points of view. One is, what does the judgment say? And the fact that the judgment has established certain fundamental things. And I think that we already heard on. And the part that I'm quite keen to see is that it is almost certain that a software as sophisticated as NSO produces may actually be able to self-destruct itself in many phones when it knows that it has been outed. And that, to my mind, is a danger. Because what you're really dealing with here is a software which probably has intelligence built into it to prevent it being easily discovered. And that is something that is known about Pegasus. So that's an area of worry for me. And my sense is that we are probably going to have, unless the committee can unearth new people, victims who haven't come forward before, or those who are volunteering to have themselves digitally scanned, electronically scanned, which their willingness should be higher. Politically, what will happen is that if more people are willing to allow the committee to look technically into what is being suspected, not alleged, suspected, then you will probably have an outpouring of information, all of which will be, without doubt, illegal. So you are going to be in a situation where, because no warrants were issued in this case, whatever information is shown to have been hacked into, there is no doubt that this isn't the work of a foreign government. So if it is a government, the only question is, why now and why these people?
The technical part also, Jayajit, is it this software, or does it self-destruct in terms of detection? So then, how do we know who all have it, the task becomes much more difficult for the committee. And secondly, the political ramifications, according to you.
So let me take the first one first, because that's where I've got a little more expertise than on the political side. But so as Dilip was mentioning, technology is not easy in the sense that it can obviously self-destruct, it can do many other things, and it can, when it infects a phone, the person will not know that it's been infected. And that's the whole purpose of Pegasus. So how will anybody even come back and say that I am one of the victims? Because the victims don't know that they are victims. And that's the challenge. It's almost like the Heisenberg's principle in physics. At the moment you test it, it changes. So you don't even know whether it exists or it doesn't exist, for that matter. So at the end of the day, as Sanjay mentioned, that if the committee comes back and say there is nothing, does it really mean there is nothing, or it is truly there is nothing, or that we are really investigating nothing? All of these become very fuzzy in the context of technology because there is very little fingerprint that is left behind. Attempting to answer the second question in terms of political ramification, I think the ramification is more in terms of whether journalists are free. Are they free before Pegasus was there, in fact, and are they less free after the Pegasus incident? Are journalists being harassed or pressurized in certain manner based on the information that's been taken out, because journalism and the fourth estate is a pillar of the way we live, our democratic institutions. So if that gets compromised, that is a serious compromise. The other point I would also like to flag is that the Supreme Court judgment actually said that if there are foreign powers involved, then that is also a huge concern. Now, maybe it is not involved. Maybe it's all Indian government, or maybe some other agencies. Just like there have been reports that the drug mafia in Latin America has been using the same software. How they got it, we don't know, because repeatedly both the Israeli government and NSO has been saying that this software is only sold to the government and nobody else. But the fact that there are reports that non-governmental agencies had received it, what is really going on in India in that context is also a big question mark. So it will be very interesting to see what comes out of it, because even if the committee is there, do they have the technical expertise and tools, or does anybody have the technical expertise and tools to really dig and find out whether a transgression has happened? Another important point that the Supreme Court judgment passed was also whether if there was any transgression, or if there was any surveillance. I would not use the word transgression, but surveillance by the government, because the government will admit or not admit to the select committee. Was there any protocol followed? Was there any regulatory steps followed to do that surveillance? Because legal surveillance is allowed. It's not that it's illegal by the government to do surveillance, but if it was legally, surveillance was done, where the regulatory protocols followed or not. I think those are the issues that we really need to look forward to and see what comes out of this case.
But Sanjay, you said, the Pegasus issue had died down, and now this will again revive it. But why was it not an issue in the first place? We've debated this earlier also. Governments have fallen on spying scandals. Is it, as Jayajit said, the atmosphere is such that we are used to now as journalists to being spied on? There were businessmen, Anil Ambani was targeted, Rahul Gandhi, opposition leaders, bureaucrats. So the list is huge. It's not just journalists. So is that now the new normal? Sorry.
Former judges.
Yes, judges, very important. So is this now the new normal, the surveillance, the big brother watching all the time, that we're just so used to it?
No, it's not only that we got used to it. And you're right about governments having fallen. Chandrasekhar's government fell because two Haryana policemen
Yes.
turned up at Rajiv Gandhi's house. So, however, as a society also, we are a set of people who like to know everything about everybody else. It is normal to ask a woman her age, whether she is married, whether she, how many children, and the whole thing. Things which you do not ask in any society where privacy is a natural concern. We give away our mobile phone numbers to all and sundry, whereas in the West, you have to send a message or you have to email before you actually call the person's mobile. Otherwise, you call the person's house or office and leave a voicemail and they get back. So, as a society also, we are not very privacy conscious. We do not have legislation. And we also have this tendency to say, "My Baap Sarkar," and like our parents are entitled to know everything about us. We haven't, in that sense, grown up in an atmosphere of privacy. So yes, if you were in the government, you would be surveilling. Now you're not in the government. The government is surveilling, and you're crying about it. That's how the opposition possibly got that kind of response. And then, since it was not getting traction, they laid off it. But there are times when the Indian public opinion turns. Now, supposing as a consequence of this surveillance, somebody made money, somebody made a lot of illegal money, or somebody got a lot of political gain, then there is a possibility that people will think that this was illegitimate. We really have to wait this one out. But if you just say the right to privacy, I don't think we are a very private society. And we, especially in the mobile phone era, we've got used to surrendering a lot of our privacy for a free app or a free peek into others' lives over social media.
And Dilip, What is your take on will it have an impact? Why hasn't it had an impact so far? Is it just because India, we don't understand privacy? Because look at what happened with the Radia tapes. Despite that, not much with Pegasus.
Jayajit mentioned the fact that technology has evolved so fast that as a society, riding on what Sanjay said about society, we probably are lagging far, far behind. But I think fundamentally the political problem is that there isn't a credible party which can take advantage of this or has credible technical expertise. What has happened is that you traditionally start criticizing the government for everything. But I think there are variations on this. When you remember at the time of the Aadhaar, there was one set of objections. Then when a new Aadhaar was brought in, or a new version of its use was brought in, some others protested about it. I think that you can divide political parties into Luddites and those who are incompetent to understand technology. One group have no interest in it and actually believe that the public can be fooled. But I think young people today are beginning to understand that while they may barter their personal privacy away for a free app, which was mentioned by Sanjay, but there is also this now new anxiety which is creeping up. I don't know what the numbers are and how significant the numbers will be politically, but there are young people who are also against the surveillance state. The fear of the surveillance state is beginning to rise, and no government is going to be immune to it. The only problem is, do we have a credible political party which has the technical savvy and the technological skills to be able to unbundle it and make it into a political issue? That is the real problem. And I think that you need young leaders who have both the gravitas as well as the skill to understand this, and then ride on what the committee comes out with. Because irrespective of how bland the committee, we've not deliberately and judiciously examined the kinds of people who are on the committee. But if you look at the technical side of the committee, is it people who are totally independent? In fact, I would have thought that you would need some global expertise on a committee like this, rather than just expect that domestic skills would suffice. And I think that is probably a hope too far.
Okay, we are joined by Abhijit Iyer Mitra, also a political commentator and columnist. Abhijit, quickly, I'm going to bring you in this conversation because we are at the fag end of it. Your first take on the Pegasus judgment, or the larger impact of it, rather.
Look, I'm very happy that the court has set up a committee. The issue is, what are all the classified, assume for a minute that the government is behind it. What are all the classified things that the court is privy to that the court is actually going to get? I can show you literally hundreds of situations in both America and Israel where the government has done things where the courts haven't been able to do squat. So, we have to be very clear out here that if the government did it, the realistic chances of the government actually getting caught for it are slim to non-existent.
But I agree with that. But what about the political fallout of it? Supposing this is that something has happened. The fact is that at least the government has got a slap on its wrist by saying that everything cannot be hidden under the garb of national security. That much, at least, there's been a setback.
Absolutely. But see, again, it comes to are you going to be able to prove that the government did it? Because the government, I suspect, will keep shifting goalposts in it. Secondly, the political fallout. I don't think people on the ground actually care much about this. Even the notion of privacy is such an elite notion in India. If you look at most families, there is no notion of privacy. At 7 a.m. in the morning, your mother will come up and throw cold water on you or beat you with a chappal to wake you up and things like that. This is a country where different countries have different notions of privacy. Privacy is a very localized phenomenon. And I think we tend to kind of impose Western notions of privacy on us. I don't think I'm not seeing a political impact. For all that love of taxi drivers and the wisdom of taxi drivers, I would really recommend everybody go and interview their taxi drivers today, Ola, Uber, whatever, and ask them if they've even heard of Pegasus, what it is, and what impact it's had on them.
That's a very good point. But that's actually what even had been argued before you joined in, as even Dilip said that.
I'm sorry, we didn't have any electricity, so I borrowed a battery pack from somebody, and I'm doing this on my phone. So I apologize for any unstable.
Thanks. Technology, it's world of technology. But quick last roundup from everybody. So then, is privacy not an issue at all, Dilip, in India, in terms of, it's only a political issue. We bring it up when we want to hammer a government, say over an Aadhaar or something, and then it dies a silent death. It's not really a game changer like Ayodhya.
Good question, Priya. I think that, what Abhijit and Sanjay talked about, the notion of privacy being a localized concept, is acceptable and understood. What we really need to figure out is whether the technology, and that is where Jayajit and experts like him will come in, whether this committee is empowered with sufficient skills and technical competence to be able to unearth anything at all. The second part is who actually got the license for this software. I'm sure the committee should be able to at least unearth that, because
that's the big one.
If anything can come out, then what will happen is that the possibility of political ramifications exist. Whether it has any resonance on the ground with taxi drivers or farmers at the border, one doesn't know. But what one does know is that media will no longer treat this as just something that is routine for itself. Because while all of us know that we are constantly being surveilled by Big Brother, the fact that it suddenly becomes something that is now at a different level is going to be causing anxiety and may change the way media functions.
The point Dilip has raised, at least if one thing comes out that yes, the surveillance was carried out by the central government, because all along they've been hedging this issue. They've not been saying yes or no. They've been taking some lawyer like you must be advising them on how to frame the answers. So the impact of that.
No, the impact of the government authorizing, buying this software as well as authorizing the use on unconnected persons, it would depend on who the unconnected person was and for what purpose.
What the names? Suppose one of these names, an Anil Ambani or a Rahul Gandhi or a retired judge or
a retired. See, these are powerful people. Those are power games. But if you used it on somebody totally unconnected, supposing you had that Mansi Soni episode in Gujarat at one point of time. So something like that. And I'm not speaking of only the top man. Now supposing there was an intelligence officer in charge of it, a Samir Wankhede kind of figure, who then went after different kinds of characters altogether.
Personal agenda. Okay.
Personal agendas. That kind of finding would really create havoc. And while I do agree with Abhijit on this concept of privacy within the house, there is no privacy, but we do have a great expectation of privacy from our neighbors. So we don't like things within the family getting out, and we certainly do not want the local police thana to know what happens within our house. We do not want the government to know. So we still do have privacy concerns. It may not be of the high level that exists in the West, but the very quotation that the Supreme Court used from the Earl of Chatham, William Pitt, saying that an Englishman's home is his castle. So an Indian's jhopda is also his parda against the rest of the world. And breaching that is not politically right.
the point, yeah, the fact that if someone has used it for a personal agenda, which they cannot, that whole, forget national security, even state matters will not be connected with that. That will be a big blow to the credibility of the government. Last word from Abhijit.
Look, I see to make it a big blow to credibility. First, it has to be something new. And second, you can't create a fire just by itself. You need to have dry wood, plus you need to have a match. So far, the political opposition has shown itself singularly incapable of lighting a match to any kind of dry wood. They've not been able to make a big issue out of anything. So one is that capacity concern. The second problem is that Indians are so used to this kind of thing. You saw WhatsApp leaks during, was it WhatsApp during the Neera Radia thing? No, it was phone conversations. Then you've had WhatsApp leaks over Arnab Goswami. You've had you've had so many WhatsApp leaks happening left, right, and center. Just now with Aryan Khan, like you said. So where is the novelty value? It's just accepted that WhatsApp is going to leak. And I would actually say here it's a matter of pride. If you actually looked at all the outrage of people who had been tapped, they were taking it as a sign of great honor. It was like a field marshal ka tag on them that they had been tapped or they had not been tapped. And I know a certain journalist was very upset. She was making calls to ensure she had been tapped. Because it would add to her credibility. It was quite sad that the government didn't find her credible enough to tap her. So, I'm not seeing this going anywhere.
Okay. I'm totally out, Jajit. Quick short word from you too.
Yeah, I just want to say that it's not a matter of individual privacy that we're talking about. It's a matter of compromise of institutions through compromise of individual privacy. And that's a bigger issue that is being discussed in relation to Pegasus. It's institutions that are getting compromised.
Okay, we'll end on that, but I really liked Abhijit's take on it. You're not someone if you haven't been tapped. That's the culture of Delhi, unfortunately. But that's it for now. Thank you for this conversation. I'm sure we'll be having many more in the days to come. But until then, a happy Diwali to everybody. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.